The year is 2026, and Formula One is about to enter into the latest era of technical regulations. The cars are becoming thinner, smaller, and lighter, and the engines will now be split 50-50 between electric and combustion. The ground effect era is coming to an end, and the sport is on the brink of a new chapter. At the same time, Codemasters has confirmed there won't be a full standalone release this year, opting instead for an expansive DLC. That decision has left many players asking the same question. Is F1 25 actually worth it? Maybe you've seen it on sale, maybe you've only recently gotten into Formula One, or maybe you're debating whether it's worth upgrading from an older title. In 2026, the answer isn't as simple as it should be. Does F1 25 still deliver the full, high-intensity Formula One experience, or is it yet another long-running, successful series doomed by EA? In this video, we break down what it gets right, where it falls short, and whether it's actually worth your money. I've been playing the official Formula One game since F1 2019, and as you can see from my total playtime on Steam, I've invested quite some time into the series. What started as a casual interest quickly became my entry point into sim racing as a whole. It was actually F1 2020 in lockdown that led me to upgrade to a wheel and pedal setup, and that's when these games really started to click for me. Now, not every title has been a hit. F1 22 was, in my opinion, a low point for the series. The handling never felt quite right, and let's just say there were plenty of unplanned spins. I actually skipped F1 24, so I won't be directly comparing it to F1 25 in this video. Instead, I'm looking at this game through the lens of someone who took a step back from the annual cycle. My personal favourite remains F1 2020. The driving felt weighted and intuitive, and the classic cars added variety that the series has arguably been missing since. F1 23 comes in at a close second. I poured hours into the My Team, League Racing, and pretty much every mode available, but let's be real, those supercars were crap. I picked up F1 25 for £19.99 during a recent Steam sale, and at the time of recording, I've put about 8 hours into it. That might not sound like a lot, but after nearly 2 years away from dedicated playtime, it's been enough to get a clear first impression. So for me, the real question is, after time away from the series, does F1 25 feel like a return to form, or more of just the same? Let's first discuss what you actually get with the game. First up, My Team 2.0. This is being positioned by EA as a major overhaul of the team management mode. You're no longer just a driver owner in name only. There's a deeper control over how your team operates. Customization has been expanded too. There's now a proper decal editor. You also get 5 new laser scan tracks. That includes Bahrain, Miami, Melbourne, Suzuka, and Imola, all of which have been rebuilt using LiDAR laser scanning technology. Breaking Point is also back with Breaking Point 3. The story mode continues between Aiden Jackson and Devon Butler, and I'm pretty sure this is the finale too. On the racing side of things, AI and handling have both been retuned. The AI is meant to race in a more natural, flowing way, and the straight line speed has been reduced. The slip angle on the front tyres has also been reduced. And finally, in terms of content, EA have released reverse tracks, that being the Red Bull Ring, Zandvoort, and Silverstone. Again, I did not have time to have a look at these tracks during my 8 hours of playtime, but EA and Codemasters fully reworked these tracks to allow for new pit entry and braking boards. There's also some scenarios based around the F1 movie, but this is locked behind a paywall, so I won't be discussing this. I do think it is necessary to highlight that this game is not a pure simulator, so the level of realism that comes with titles like Le Mans Ultimate, Assetto Corsa, and Automobilista will not be found in this game. This game is a sim-cade game, but personally this does not retract from the overall experience. So given this, let's discuss the pros and the cons. Let's start off with the most important thing, the driving. This year, the cars feel intuitive and predictable. Whether you're running a custom setup you spent hours refining, or you're just using one of the presets, the balance is far more stable than in some previous titles. I didn't experience those random, unexplained snaps or spins that used to kill my confidence mid-corner. Finding pace feels a lot more natural, and pushing to the limit feels rewarding now rather than risky for the wrong reasons. That alone makes a huge difference lap after lap, and that improved feel carries directly into how you race with others. The AI is noticeably more aggressive and more human. In older titles, Turn 1 often felt like a guaranteed opportunity to gain 10 places because the entire grid would file through in a neat train. That's now gone, and the AI now defends harder, takes varied lines, and occasionally makes believable mistakes. They are faster through the corners, especially in changing conditions, and they're much less predictable now, but I think this makes wheel-to-wheel racing feel earned rather than scripted. And when that racing happens, it looks better than ever. This leads on to my next point, graphics and world presentation. So visually, this is the best the series has ever looked. The colour palette strikes a strong balance, vibrant without feeling arcade-like, and the car models, both F1 and F2, 2024 and 2025 are incredibly detailed, and the laser scan circuits add subtle realism to the track surfaces, especially like the cherry blossom at Suzuka. But beyond visuals, it's the licensed world that really elevates it for me. You have real teams, real sponsorships, authentic commentary, and the full race weekend structures. Every session feels very official, it feels very Formula One. It really adds to the immersion, even when you just jump on and play in short bursts. That immersion is backed up by the sheer amount of content available. There is certainly no shortage of things to do. You have driver career, my team, time trial, F1 world scenarios, and breaking point. So the game really offers something for nearly every type of player. Whether you want long-term progression, competitive hot lapping, or story-driven drama, there's enough depth here. You can sink dozens of hours into one mode or jump between them depending on your mood. So in terms of volume alone, it's a very complete package, and importantly, it's fairly easy to access all of it. So I think this is one of the game's biggest strengths. You can just boot it up and you can be on track within minutes. Quick races are very simple to set up, whether against the AI or online, and the handling model is forgiving enough for newcomers while still offering depth for experienced players. It doesn't demand hardcore sim knowledge to be enjoyable, which makes it easily a recommendation for the more casual F1 fans. That accessibility is also reflected in the changes to My Team 2.0. The overhaul to My Team 2.0 adds meaningful customization and long-term progression. There's more focus on facilities, branding, and team development, which all helps with the world building and longevity of the game. New events and expanded management systems make it feel fresher compared to what was becoming what I would think is a slightly stale formula. It gives you more to think about off track and more reasons to commit to multi-season saves. However, My Team 2.0 does directly lead into some of the game's weaker points. So let's now lead into the bad. First up, the My Team identity changes. So whilst My Team does have more systems, I think it's also lost some identity. You're no longer a true owner-driver in the same way. Instead of creating yourself as both team boss and racer, you're locked into using either a real-world driver, an esports driver, or an icon. That small shift for me removes some of the fantasy and personal attachment that made earlier versions special. It feels slightly less personal as a result, and that sense of friction continues in the menus. So regarding menus and overcomplication, there's a strange mix of too much customization and not enough cohesion. The HUD elements, camera settings, and small tweaks are all scattered across multiple menus. There's no universal setting for certain options, meaning you have to repeat adjustments per car. So this is regarding the camera settings. So for me, especially on the TV pod angles, you have to adjust it every time you change into a different car, whether that be the McLaren, Mercedes, the My Team car, to straighten up the view. It's not game breaking, but I think it just adds unnecessary friction between you and the racing. You also have to go and manually change the on-screen displays for each type of session you're in, whether that be racing, time trial, or elimination or online racing. You have to go in and manually edit it for every single type of session. I think this is quite frustrating, and I'd like to see a universal option for the next F1 game. Then you have F1 World. On paper, it's ambitious. In practice, it can feel a lot like a grind. The structure leans heavily into repetitive objectives, and when combined with an inconsistent at best online racing standard, it quickly becomes a slog. The core idea is promising, but the execution lacks the refinement needed to make it consistently enjoyable. Regarding actual racing, strategy depth is another area that feels limited, specifically the tyre and fuel strategy. There's very little payoff for strategic variation, in my opinion. Offsetting tyre strategies or adjusting fuel loads rarely changes race outcomes in meaningful ways. The AI still seems to push flat out regardless of fuel state, and tyre wear feels predictable rather than dynamic. There's room here for more realistic elements like lift and coast or genuine fuel saving to become a more viable option. Performance outside of the car also needs some attention. Most importantly, and I'm sure you've heard this before if you've seen any F1 25 content, is the loading times. So even installed on my SSD, which I would say is the standard by now, loading times can be surprisingly long. Transitions between sessions, menus, and race weekends sometimes drag more than they should. It does break the immersion slightly, and it feels very outdated compared to modern standards. And for wheel issues, there's another issue, and that is importantly the force feedback. It feels very underwhelming. I race on a CSL DD, and there is resistance, but there's very limited detail. The curbs, weight transfer, they don't always translate clearly through the wheel. So for a title that leans more towards a sim-cade rather than full simulation, I would still expect more communication through the force feedback than what's currently delivered. So there's quite a few good points with this game, and there's also quite a few bad points that at the very least need improving in the next title. In conclusion, if you're a Formula One fan, this is still a very easy game to enjoy. It's not a hardcore simulator, but the driving fundamentals are strong enough that skills like racecraft, braking consistency absolutely transfer elsewhere. The replay value, the accessibility, and the overall polish make this such a solid package, especially at discounted discounted price. It may not be a revolutionary leap forward, but it's a stable and enjoyable platform. And with future DLC updates, including F1 26, building on this foundation, it feels a lot less like a placeholder and more like a steady step in the right direction. And for that matter, I would recommend F1 25 to anyone who enjoys racing, anyone who enjoys driving simulators, and anyone looking for an enjoyable experience racing. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.